Hello everyone, Mecha here, and welcome back to another Fire Emblem Ranked run. It's been a while, but today we are continuing on our journey through Elite, and we're playing some Fire Emblem 6 Ranked. And back again from her adventure in FE7 Ranked is Altissimo. Welcome back, how are you doing?
Good, glad to be back.
I'm so excited for another one of these playthroughs. This is just an introduction to get a refresher on what ranked means for the playstyle, for the videos, just to make sure we get everything out of the way. And during the episodes where we're actually playing the game, we will be focusing on what the characters are doing, what their roles are, what the plans are right now. This is a refresher on ranked in general and how it differs from, for example, FE7. So I got some Serenus Forest open, but if you see any game footage, I probably grabbed that from our previous playthrough. There might be some Lin in there, for example. And we're going to go over each of the ranks, I guess, to get started. For those of you that don't know, a ranked run is if you try to beat the game, not just to complete it, but to also get all the rank to maximum. And for FE6, the maximum rank is getting A in all the different ranks to get an S or a double S for your overall score. And I believe double S is if you complete hard mode while getting A rank in all ranks. Is that correct?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Yes, and your run is a double S rank.
Yes, it's hard mode.
Yes, and FE6 has 6 different ranks. I think FE7 had 5, so it's a little different, but there's a lot of overlap. The things that are being measured are roughly the same, but the names are a little different. There's a difference in the units and the way that the game is played. Like FE6 maps, they're a bit bigger, enemies are a bit harder to beat, the player units are a bit weaker. I think I already said that. So there's probably a big difference, even though the ranks look roughly the same. So we're gonna go over each of them and see what the biggest hurdles were in FE6 compared to FE7. Generally for ranked, for FE7, the big hurdle was balancing tactics against experience, I've found. And I'm curious how that's gonna stack up for FE6, but let's go over them one by one. So tactics, how many turns it takes you to complete the entire game. It's measured on the chapter by chapter basis. There's like a whole table here that will tell you like, hey, how many turns you need to beat each chapter in. But that matters a lot less than just the overall pace that you're on and if you think you can beat the game in the turns that you have left. And the amount of turns we have total here is 630. I did a little bit of math to figure out how bad that would be, and I came to around a little over 20 turns per map, which, I mean, it sounds like a time constraint that you have to keep in mind, but it's still fairly lax. Like, you're not going to have to rush through chapters killing everything with your best combat units. You can still train units, and it's kind of like the Gaiden requirements for some of the FE6 Gaiden chapters, where it's like, okay, it's like, you got to keep it in mind, but it's not a super big constraint on your tactics, and generally you can take a bit of a slower pace than you might in an efficient playthrough or something. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, funnily enough, the Gaiden requirements were actually worse than the tactics requirements in a couple of cases, where I just ran up against that time limit.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Mostly due to grinding out experience, just generally being slower, not doing as much like Roy rescue dropping towards the throne and things like that.
Yeah, I can imagine that. I remember FE7 had a fair amount of, okay, so I'm just going to slow down, fight all the reinforcements here to feed into my unleveled units. I imagine that I guess the run will be a slower pace than a lot of casual playthroughs in that sense, because in a casual playthrough, you probably will have a couple of units that you just train up, and they could just beat the whole chapter down because they've gotten so many level ups and promotions, whereas you might be running around with a lot of unpromoted units with less than optimal stats, and feeding them will take a bit more time than we might be used to. Is that right?
Yes, I am doing the get all units to 20 thing that I did in the Fire Emblem 7 playthrough as well, which I don't need to do in order to do ranked, but decided to do it here anyway just to flex. And yeah, I definitely need to grind out experience in order to get some of the game's worst units to do anything.
I didn't notice, and I've completely forgot about that extra bit of masochism that you bring to the table. That's insane. Because I remember I was actually going to do an FE6 rank run on my channel before I decided to do the Linen the Binding Blade thing, and I remember having like a little spreadsheet and it's like populating it with raids, and we were like, well, maybe we can get Wendy to like level 5 instead of level 4, but that's probably like really cruel, but it can probably be done. And all stuff like that, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get her to 20, and also Barth, and also OJ, and also everyone else. I'm just gonna get him level 20. Like, okay, all right, this is a whole different ballgame then.
I think ranked FE6 is generally not difficult in the same way that FE7 is. And I mean, that's even ignoring the fact that I was doing like unused values FE7.
Right.
Just in general, it's really not that pressing to meet most of these requirements. But if I do it with the stipulation that everyone has to get to level 20, obviously it becomes a lot more difficult, and that actually makes it a lot more difficult to meet the combat rank.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Let's pivot to combat then real quick because you brought it up. I believe this is the exact same that you have to do in FE7. You have to end 40% of all your combats with a dub, with the enemy dead, 0 HP gone, wiped out, reduced to atoms. And in FE7 that was pretty trivial because the best way I like to put it is if you 2-hit KO every single enemy, you're still gaining ground over it, because at that point you're at a 50% win rate. Either your battle like push them to half HP or kills them. So you still gain leverage, you still gain time to do like a 3-hit KO or worse if you keep doing that. And in FE6, this is like almost a natural rate of killing enemies, I feel like, where you have like one really good combat unit weakening on an enemy phase. I'm like reminded of, for example, Heath equipping a Slim Lance to weaken enemies so that some other scrub can pick up the kill. And I imagine this is a pretty comfortable rating for FE6, as long as you don't get screwed over by someone missing an attack, which I think is pretty commonplace in FE6. Is that right?
Absolutely. One of the biggest problems with combat rank is that hit rates are just so much worse overall. I mean, moves don't kill nearly as often as they do in FE7 unless you're like training up an early game powerhouse or something like that, which I can't do. But it's especially, the hit rates are especially annoying in that regard. So is the fact that there's lots of like long range magic, long range tomes and ballistas.
That is true. I didn't really factor in with that 50% analysis that if you don't counter the enemy, that is I mean, it's not a 0%, but it brings you down by like one more battle every time it happens. And there are a lot of like long range stuff like that, as well as longbows. And yeah, that's true. I didn't really consider that. So you would say for FE7, this was trivial. Like you could just ignore this one and basically get a 5-star. Would you say that's not the case for this game? Did you actually have to like one round stuff somewhere to make up for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so actually I'll go ahead and say this. When I did the run, I basically had to do it twice, because the first time I did it, my notes ended up not working on chapter 4, so I just ended up having to reroute everything from chapter 4 onwards. So I completed the run twice, and the first time around, I was actually, like, I had to actually really, really work to make I don't remember the chapter number, the one with Brunya, to make that fit into like combat, because even with killing all the Manicheets in like 1 or 2 hits in the next couple chapters, it still wasn't enough. So I had to like reroute the Brunya chapter in order to get combat up. Second time I did better, but I was still like, for most of the game, the combat was an issue.
You're cutting it close. All right, were you like looking at the augury every time and be like, oh god, why is it 4-star? Let me get it back up to 5. Was it like that?
Yep, and I even went so far as to calculate what my number should be at, my percentage, by like going over my notes and reviewing like everything I had killed. It was awful.
That does sound awful, because if it's like tactics or funds, for example, you can just look at your little table and just see like, okay, this is how many turns I've spent, this is how many I've left, this is how much money I have right now, how much I can expect. You have like a budget for it, literally. But for combat, that sounds a lot more tedious, right? Because when you're doing the run, you don't even know in advance everything that's going to happen. I mean, you know roughly, you know the plan. But you're still like planning it turn by turn, right?
Yes. So it was annoying, to say the least.
Very. Okay, let's quickly move on to another more trivial rank, which is survival. Every character has to be alive at the end of the game, and if that is true, then you get an S rank, or an A rank in this case. And apparently you're allowed to not recruit characters in order to keep this one, but for the power rank, which we'll get into later, I don't believe you can get away with this. So I think this is like, planning wise, this has to be the easiest one, right? Because it's just like, okay, I find a way to clear the chapter with all people alive, and if I do, that's this one on track. Like with tactics, if you spend too many turns in chapter 1, for like a very dumb example, you can lock yourself out of an S rank, but that's not going to happen with survival as long as you know to keep everyone alive. Is that an accurate summary?
Yeah, you basically don't even think about it when you're planning a run like this, because it's just like, if you have it in your mind that you can't let anyone die, which a lot of players, don't reset. So This is kind of like a common Fire Emblem experience to a lot of people. If you have that in your mind, it's not difficult. I'd love to see someone do like an Iron Man rank challenge sometime though, where they see what the highest rank they can reach is in the context of an Iron Man. I think that would be kind of fun.
Did you know that this exists for FE5 Thracia? You probably still haven't played it, but it exists.
No, not yet.
All right, so
okay.
Thracia is just basically tactics and survival, or maybe more accurate is say tactics and power. Recruit everyone, get a certain pretty low turn count, and if you do that, you get the highest rank in the game. And someone, Lolo Sintonia, I need to pronounce her name right. She did a pre-planned run with no like RNG planning for FE5, where she Iron Man the game and I got an S rank at the end. So it exists, but there's no experience rank there, so it's a bit different.
Right.
Speaking of which, experience, we kind of alluded to it because it really dominates the FE6 ranked meta, and really every ranked meta, even FE4 Genealogy, the Holy War. So we kind of had to go over it a little bit already. But just real briefly, you need to get a bunch of XP. And in a normal playthrough, this is the rank you're going to feel the most. Like, whenever you're playing Fire Emblem blindly for the first time, and you're checking your rankings, and Marcus or someone other character looks at you sternly and says, "You failed the XP so hard, you're so bad at this." No, you're not bad at this. You're playing optimally for what you're doing, which is trying to beat the game. But this is intended to make the game harder, and so it'll give you a worse rank if you just disregard it, which most people would do, because distributing XP equally among your entire party is so bad for your long-term growth. And I imagine me, whenever I like dip my toes into a rank for a little bit, this is the rank that makes me just kind of give up on a playthrough, because I'll be like, early on, you'll be like, oh, I can have Marcus, this is an FE7 example, I'm gonna have Marcus rescue one of my scrubs, he's gonna weaken everyone, and then I have Lowen come in for a kill, and Dorcas come in for a kill, and Nettie would come in for a kill, and they're all just gonna get one kill. This is so much fun. Then I get to like chapter 20 or chapter 21 or something, and this strategy no longer works because Marcus is no longer that overpowered anymore, and I have many more mouths to feed, and the hard mode experience cut gets to me and stops giving me XP. Now I'm getting like 10 or 20 per kill, and I'm just like, this is miserable. It makes me want to give up on this shit and just play something else, play anything else. So that is my experience with the experience rank. And you said, yeah, no, it's not hard enough. I'm gonna get every single scrub in FE6 to 20, and FE6 has so many scrubs that are just not fun to train. So what was it like trying to grind experience in FE6?
Quite interesting, if not necessarily fun to route. Because the fact that there, like you said, there were so many scrubs, and there, a lot of the way that the game's difficulty works means that it's difficult to find maps to train scrubs. Like even in Fire Emblem 7, I was doing things like bringing Nino to Night of Farewells and having her get like a whole bunch of experience there. And that works because Night of Farewells has like shit tier enemies that you can actually kill with Nino. But in a lot of the late game FE6 maps, it can be a lot more difficult to find these kill opportunities for your weaker units. So I had to get creative about how I was going to get experience onto some of my units and what chapters I would bring them to that don't seem to make a lot of sense. And there are a couple. There are a couple maps where I bring a unit and people in the comments were like, "What the hell is this? Why are you doing this?" So.
And it's like a case of like, you bring a unit to a map not because they're good in the map, but because it's the least bad map to bring them to get experience then, right?
Yes, that's an accurate way to describe it.
That does sound miserable. I remember FE7, you had plans like, okay, I'm gonna bring my archer scrub to a chapter that has a lot of enemy flyers, or I'm gonna bring Dart to a chapter where he can use his water walking or fight a lot of lance enemies or something in the forest. Like he fought a lot of wyverns in, I think it was the Linus chapter. So something like that, but less optimal, I guess, is what we're going to see in the run.
Yeah, basically, because like those instances that you just described in FE7, they worked out because the unit was usually strong enough to deal with that, but sometimes even when given an advantage, the unit's just simply not strong enough to be very reliable or consistent in FE6, just due to the way hit rates work, due to the way like certain weapon types and weapons have accuracy reduced, the fact that enemies have luck, that kind of thing.
Yeah, true. One other thing I guess that makes experience hard is that the funds rank exists. We can move on to funds, right? We have enough preluding about experience. So
Yeah.
funds in FE6, from what I can read, seems a bit different from FE7. It is basically a way to grade how much money you have left in the bank, which again is the opposite of what you usually want to do in a Fire Emblem game. Fire Emblem game resource management is usually like, okay, I have a Silver Lance, or I have a Worm Slayer, or I have something expensive and good, and I don't want to use it willy-nilly on everything, but I want to use it where it counts. I want to use an Iron Weapon when an Iron Weapon will suffice, but if I need to upgrade, I can do that. I have that option, and my job as a tactician is to figure out when it's the most optimal time to do that. And in funds, you have an extra constraint there where the worth of your items counts towards your fund rank, and so every time you expend it, you lose a little bit of money that you have in the bank. It's kind of a poor way to explain it. It has a formula to it though that is different from FE7. My memory in FE7, it just counts the worth, not the sell value, but the actual worth of your items, which means you lose fund rank if you sell something because you get half price. But in this one, it looks a bit different. It says physical gold, so the gold you just have to buy stuff with, plus all your items worth divided by 2, which basically is their sell value. So does that mean that if you have, say, a 1,000 gold item in your convoy, it doesn't matter for your funds rank whether you sell it or just keep it there? Like, is that just basically the same thing? Okay, so
yeah, and Fire Emblem 6 selling and sorry.
I was just gonna say, so as long as you don't like expend that thing, like either sell it for money that you use to buy things, or you don't use the thing itself, you're fine with no matter what you do, right?
Right. So whether this is easier or not, like that's kind of I guess it just depends which way you look at the game. Because like Silver Card also kind of changes how useful it can be as a result of the calculation changing. So I don't really have like a preference or anything one way or the other for either formula. I will say, however, that the funds rank in this game is like, even if I do we want to talk about the bug now, since we're talking about funds?
Yeah, I was really briefly want to talk about the Silver Card, I guess, which is the thing that FE7 makes so weird, in that FE7, if you have gold, the best way for the funds rank to spend that gold is to wait for Silver Card and buy a bunch of stuff that you never use, and then you get more funds rank out of it. But that doesn't work in this game, right? My math is messing up in my head, so I'm just double checking that I got it right. Do you do that in this game or not? Is that a good idea or not?
I don't think I end up spending all of my gold on Silver Card items, because in FE7, I think that's like a conversion of gold to something that's of greater value than the gold itself is worth. But in FE6, because it's just like a straight conversion, like you use 500 gold to buy a 500 gold worth item, because with the Silver Card. Yeah. Because you're taking into account the sell price instead of the actual cost. Does that make sense?
I think so, but I'm a little lost, so I'm just going to take your word for it, and the commenters won't understand it because they're smarter than me all the time.
Sorry?
Just in general, I wanted to ask how hard it would be to reach, like... Actually, we should talk about the bug, because it probably matters more than this sum of money here. I think it's in the details here. There's an oddity with funds where how much gold you need to get the highest rank depends on the ending you get. I believe Epilogue 22 is like different from Epilogue 23. I'm sure you have the details down better than me, so I do notice Roy and Lena do not have an A support together, have a different sum of gold. So what's the deal with this? What's up with this?
So it says above, basically when the game finishes, it's using the funds value associated with the last map that it loads on screen, which is hilarious. But it also means that the ending you get matters, because different endings will give you different cutscenes to end the game with.
Oh, so is this 14 because of the scene with Fa and Idun in the desert? Is that why? Oh, that's so funny.
So it's obviously like the 84,000 is not supposed to be the final number, because if you look at the funds table, you'll see that like previous chapters have a much greater requirement for that. Okay, so the way this works is you multiply that funds value in the rightmost column by 6,000, and that's the amount of funds you're expected to get on that map.
Are the funds here? Oh, I see them.
Yeah, that's the right. So the first chapter is 6,000, second is 12,000, and it's just linear. There's not like really any specific chapter by chapter funds ranks like there are in FE7.
Wait, I'm not seeing it. Is this 1 and 2 represents is it like times 1,000, whatever this says, or
times 6,000? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that. Yes, times 6,000. Okay, so first chapter 6,000, second is 12,000, and so on. So this is just the total up to that point. So
yeah.
you're expected to get roughly 6K per chapter, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Roughly.
And guidance count as like the number of the chapter that they're following.
Oh, interesting. So guidance basically don't add any funds rank to it. Like it's just if you get gold in a guidance, that's just a straight benefit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting.
As far as I can tell. I may be misunderstanding, but that's my understanding of it, yeah.
Yeah, and so if you come to chapter 15 or 14x, I guess, and you look at your funds ranking, and you see, oh, I have 5 stars. Like, as long as you don't spend more than you gain, you get your S rank because of this then, right? Because this is the last chapter that loads the value for.
Right, if you're doing that specific epilogue. Then, yeah. But I don't want to do that. That's boring. Why would I use the glitched value when I could use the correct value?
Okay, so did you go for good ending, but then adhere to this value then, the hardest one?
The hardest one I think is like 144 or something, because I don't think even the Roy and Lelina with A support is like loads the final map. I don't remember the exact value. It's going to be in my YouTube video comments, or not comments, but description. But I don't have that pulled up. But either it's something like 144,000 or maybe 150,000.
Is it just 25 times 6K?
Yeah, it would be. So that's what, 150?
I'll ask Google.
Okay. Yeah, no, that'd be 150. Okay. So I was gunning for 150,000 instead of any of these values listed down here.
Okay, so once again, you're going over what the game tells you need to do. That's
yes.
Classy. Very cool.
I did, for what it's worth, I do go for good ending, and I do go for Roy and Lelina A support just because I like having that little cutscene at the end.
There we go. That's the looking for. That's the follow up to the Pent Louise A support, I guess.
Yep, basically.
Based. Yeah, generally I think Tactics doesn't really allow you to like really support grind like all of Karel and Yoder supports, but you can probably get some along the way if you wanted to. So I'm looking forward to seeing those. Okay. Anything else on funds before I move on?
No, well, the game gives you a lot of funds. So in the Fire Emblem 7 run, I had to, I could only promote 5 units total, which I promoted 4 at the end of it. And I mean, I was using unused values to be fair, but there still wasn't a whole lot of leeway. But Fire Emblem 6 gives you a lot of stuff. So if you're worried about having like Juggernaut units, you can promote a lot of dudes. So you can, get them to 20 and then still continue making them, even like some of your crappier units, useful because you're allowed to promote them and keep getting levels on them if they've got, something to contribute.
Yeah, and I guess the advantage for you is that as you're grinding up units for experience, you can pick the units that get blessed and just kind of bench the units that didn't get benched, and you can have some really good but really interesting different units than you might usually see in a playthrough. I remember one specific example from footage that I used for the Gale video that really piques my interest, shall we say. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing who gets promoted into this one. And I generally in FE6, it gives you a lot of stuff. It's kind of weird because it doesn't have item drops like FE7, but instead I think it just gives you a lot more chests. And
yeah, and there's like a bunch of promotion items you can just steal end game, which nobody ever does because why are you bringing thieves to the Brugge map? Things like that, but if you get it, that's fun.
Look, I will tell you, I have used Zephiel's Hero Crest before, alright? It was necessary.
Yep. I remember that. And one thing I will say about my unit choices, I'm not going to spoil it fully, but one stipulation I wanted for myself was try to get at least one user of each legendary weapon.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they're free,
which includes light.
Oh yes, yes. That's
but yeah, so that.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that's like 1/3 of a spoiler right there.
Well,
you guess it blindly.
A bit, a small spoiler.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
But yeah, so that plays into my decision making on who to promote and who to train and all that, and you'll see it, you'll see it happen throughout the run. You'll see what my decisions are in that regard.
All good. Looking forward to. I don't even know what I'm looking forward to. That's the thing. I haven't watched the run. I'm going in blind. So last rank is Power, which was not in FE7. I'm just going to read out what it says on Strands Force because it's going to word it better than I can ever do it from the top of my head. Total level of all recruited characters, and then promoted characters have to add 20, just like we usually do in Conversation, so that's nothing different. Dancer, Bard, and Mankeet, so respectively Larum, Elfin, and Fae count as non-promoted classes. and you need 1,001 or more levels to get an A rank. So this just reads to me like, okay, this is experience, but also now we're basically obliging you to do full recruitment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, if you get the experience rank, like if you meet that rank and you've recruited all your units, you've got your power rank.
Okay.
I don't think there's any way to not have the power rank at that point. But if you don't recruit all units, especially some of the late game promoted units, then you might have some trouble reaching the power rank.
That makes sense.
And there's no like rank for full recruitment, but that's still something I go for because it makes the game more interesting and challenging.
Yeah, okay. So basically these three combined, survival, experience, and power combined, they will make for full recruitment and a lot of levels. Basically what it is. That makes sense. I feel like you think this might be intended to give you for like ranks that are not necessarily maxed out, but still they want to reward people who recruit everyone, but not necessarily maybe meet the experience rank. Maybe it might be for that.
Maybe. I'm not really entirely sure. To me, it just seemed weird to me coming off of FE7, but obviously this game was made first, so I can't have any idea what was going through the minds of the devs in this case. It would be more interesting if most people didn't already do full recruitment runs.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like, there's not really any particularly super hard recruitments to do in FE6. It's not like FE5 Xavier or, I don't know, the recruitment that you might miss, like FE9's T-Fan. So it's kind of puzzling, but I guess it will make players go for more completionist playthroughs. And again, it might be for people who don't necessarily get max rank, but they still wanted to have like differentiating ranks. But this is probably the reason why they cut it from FE7, because again, like you said, the game was made before FE6 or before FE7.
Also, the game doesn't give you descriptions of the ranks, so trying to figure out what power represents is probably like an exercise in madness for somebody just playing the game casually.
Surely, because you might think it has to do with like, oh, how much strength do my units have or something? How much magic do they have?
That would be my guess, so I don't know.
That is very strange. Okay, and then finally this little thing here says overall, if you have them all at A rank, you'll get an S rank or normal mode. We've been over this. One question that did pop up to my mind though, as we were looking through this, is it has like it seems to have like a tactician star like system here where it gives points based on how you do with the ranks. But if you just adhere to the values that we discussed before, like how much funds you need, how much level you need, can you just basically just ignore all this here?
Basically the way that works is, so like you get your overall ranking at the end of the game, and if you've gotten all A ranks, then it's going to be S or SS rank. But if you don't have that, if you have anything that's below an A rank, the game has to kind of like average out what you did get it to give you that like big letter that says, hey, this is your overall ranking. And so you can see in that second table that it's got like a list of values that will play into each of the big letters. Like the S rank is you have to have 630 points. And the only way to achieve that is to have all of the A ranks, because if you add up the points that are in the A rank column in the above table, that's 630. There's no, like, you can't make any substitutions there.
Okay.
But if you have some rank that's less than A, it's gonna calculate what your overall should be based on what you got.
Okay, makes sense.
So if I'm going for all like, you know, SS rank, then none of this actually matters to me, because I just know what I need to do to get to all the A ranks, and that's the end of it.
Okay, clear. Thank you. Last question that I had in mind, but feel free to add your own spice if we forgot anything. You have a methodology that you used for FE7, and you already mentioned that you kind of winged it for FE6, but one thing I wanted to ask about is GBA FEs have a seeded RNG, where if you do the same thing in every playthrough, the same things are going to happen. And I know in FE7 you kind of went turn by turn with your planning process for that, like including the RNG. So you just went, okay, I'm gonna move my unit up and attack, and then keep doing that. And if that all works out, great, that's one turn planned out, let's do the next one, including the RNG seed. I'm assuming for FE6 you had to maybe amend that a little bit to account for the bad hit rates on units. So how different was your planning process for this one in that regard?
Surprisingly, not very different. The hit rates are a problem, but you know, Fire Emblem 6 gives you so many more units per map that if I like couldn't hit something on the first try, I'd just, you know, reload the turn and just have other units do other things and then try again. And usually somewhere in there you can find like a 30% hit or like RNG seed that'll work for you.
Okay.
So just because there's so many units doing so many things. So that it was pretty similar. Just like I'd start a turn, be like, okay, what do I need to accomplish this turn? Go through the process and possibly like reorder how my units are attacking so that I can get more favorable hit results. Which of course makes this, it's some people say it's not really like legitimate or anything because I'm landing all these 30% hits that I keep taking, and it's like, yeah, but when you're dealing with units like Sophia and Wendy and Wade, I think you'd be hard pressed to kind of do this in a more natural way. But I'd be impressed to see someone try.
Yeah, it is probably possible to do a run like this where you have like an RNG scrambler on, so you can't do stuff like that. But in a way, I think this is impressive planning in its own way because you are getting some, like say 30% hit rates to connect, and the key is to find out which ones to use that for and to find those strings in the first place by changing the order like that. And if your plans were not flexible, if you couldn't change the order like that to have a unit with a more accurate attack go first and then have the other unit try again, if your plans were inflexible for some reason, then it wouldn't work out either way. You'd still be screwed. So there's still a pretty good degree of planning involved that I think you might be selling yourself short on here. I think this is still really, really impressive. And it's impossible to avoid this level of planning if you're trying to do a run and record it as well to be consistent. Like, you have to deal with a seeded RNG. That is just the reality of FE6. So I am impressed. If no one else is,
well, thank
but
you.
Other people will be too.
No one else.
Trust me. Comment section is very nice to you, and they should be. Don't be not nice. I swear to God. Anyway,
I just got married. I'll have my husband come and beat your ass.
Oh, congratulations! Congratulations. Yes.
If I weren't trying to get every unit to 20, I could definitely have put on like an RNG scrambler or something and just not used some of the absolute worst units in the game. Because you don't need to. There's other ways to make up the experience deficit. But because I'm using Sophia and Wendy and Wade and Geese and all these terrible units, I have to make some concessions.
I love that you just mixed Geese in there the second time around just to trash talk him.
He's not great. I wish he was a little better, but he's not.
Same. All right. Anything else you want to add before we round it up here?
Just going back to the RNG stuff again. I don't do any arrow dancing.
Right.
In fact,
Thank you
since the Fire Emblem 7 run, I got a lot better at moving my cursor in such a way that it doesn't burn RNs. So there aren't even any accidental RN burns in my movement. Unless there's like one case I forgot about.
Again, your modesty shines through, because I distinctly remember in FE7 that you would say, oh, I had to do like one RNG burn here, and it hurt my soul, and I can't sleep at night over it because I feel so bad about it. But most of the time you were like, yeah, I just moved my cursor in a way that doesn't burn RNs. Like, that was already happening a lot in FE7, so the fact you got better at it, I think is impressive to me. But yeah, for those who don't know about arrow wiggling real briefly, basically stuff like hitting attacks and getting crits requires RNG, but also the way you move your cursor and the way the arrow redraws itself if you move to a different tile that you can't reach by just moving continuously, that also requires RNG. And by manipulating that, you can change what attacks hit and miss if you were to like use some arrows to like burn RNs, and that is what Altissimo is explicitly not doing, at least in FE7 also didn't do, other than unintentionally sometimes, and that would require like an entire extra chapter worth of planning just to figure out, shit, where did I burn an RN? In fact, sometimes even a cutscene can burn RNs, right? If you had like a character move around in one of those. Yeah,
and I think that was the problem. Like I mentioned before, my chapter 4 notes like screwed up and I couldn't use them, and so I had to redo the entire run. I think there must have been some cutscene stuff. I could never, like, I had a result written down, but I could never recreate it. So I don't know if I just wrote something down wrong, or if I somehow got like some weird RN that is like actually difficult to hit if you're just going through the cutscene or something. But after that, I just decided, screw it, we're going to do this in a very consistent way, where the beginning cutscene of every chapter, I'm going to wait until I see a dialogue box before skipping it.
Oh, that makes sense. Because like just to clear this up for myself, when you did the planning, you took notes, and then you go back and you just do your notes and then record it, right? That is your process. You don't use an RNG script to figure out where you are at in the RNG seeds.
It would have been useful, clearly, but no, I didn't.
Oh, impressive. All right. Anything else before I tell people where to go if they want to watch this?
Yeah, one more self-imposed challenge I had on myself, as if it wasn't already stupid enough. was I had to visit every house and village, even the ones that don't give you items.
Wait, the houses, like the actual houses, like
Yeah.
the one square guys that just tell you money is important. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, why? No, cool, great. It's just throwing that out there. I'm out here like, ooh, how do I beat FE6 hard? Oh, I keep dying because my Marcus is good enough. You're like, I want to visit every house and level Wendy to level 20 and then not use her. What?
Yep.
Why? The flex. That's why.
I don't know what to say. It's flexing,
Every
but
house.
I couldn't tell you why.
I don't even know where all the houses are in FE6. I know some maps don't have any though, so that's good. Yo, what if the comment section finds a house you didn't visit? Does that ruin your entire run?
Yeah, I have to redo it. No,
You have to redo the
I
whole
probably
run.
won't.
Like,
I did have someone say they thought I didn't visit a house, but I'm like, no, actually at,
You're-
1532 or whatever.
Yeah, you hit it with the timestamp and it replies. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
check this out.
That's
Right
where I got
here.
it.
Yo, more flyer utility. Let's go. It's probably like a random house in a corner of a map somewhere where you just have to send some dumbass like Zeus or Thea just to get the house. I look forward to it. Okay, if you want to see this run uncommentated, you can find it on Altissimo's channel. She has a playlist conveniently organized where you just watch through it, or you can wait and keep your eye on this channel and we will have a new episode. I think roughly every week is the plan, to have a new chapter every time. We'll just do one chapter at a time probably, because they can last pretty long. As you can see, they're like half an hour plus long sometimes. A lot of them are 20 minutes.
Longer than... Oh, one more point I did want to
Uh-huh.
make is that I did use a patch to do the thing where you can turn animations off but still have the battle.
Oh, that's good.
Because originally I was going to do it with animations on, and then eventually I realized that was going to end up with like 3-hour-long chapters.
Oh god, yeah, no, that makes
So-
sense. That's good.
But that's the only change I've made to this ROM,
Yeah, I remember.
other than the English patch.
I remember in FE7, I was definitely kind of, I don't want to say pining for it. Everything. Oh, it would have been cool if this was here. Now it's here. That's cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Do you have health bars as well in that one? Like health.
Not the ones that just sit over your character's head all the
Okay.
time. I don't have that one.
All right. I guess we'll.
I
Just
don't
have-
remember which patch this is. I just know it's the one that does battle data.
Well, I mean, it's not like we need a health bar to tell if Sophia's about to die to an attack anyway. It's fine.
Well, I mean, she always is. So like, who cares?
Exactly. He's always at 100%, which is one hit away from dying. It's
Yeah,
guaranteed.
exactly.
It's a great character. And if you somehow missed the FE7 run, that is on my channel as well. Also, the uncommented versions of Altissimo's channel as well. But that playlist is called like Intended Ranks by and with Altissimo, and with the thumbnail Intended Ranks WTF. And same format, same idea. So if you can't wait, but you somehow missed that one, you have that to check out. And of course, I'll have a link to Altissimo's channel in the description and or end screen, and you'll probably be chilling in the comments as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask here or on her channel. And yeah, again, I can't say it enough. Looking forward to the run, seeing what kind of devious strategies you have planned. And thank you for joining me once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll see you all next time for Chapter 1. Peace!
Bye.